Hello, friends. Today you will hear a simple story about Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt. This story will tell you about her life, how she became a queen, how she fought for her throne, who she loved, and what difficult choices she had to make. We will use easy words and short sentences, so everyone can understand the story. Cleopatra was smart, brave, and strong. Her story shows that one person can change the world. Let's begin our journey to ancient Egypt. Cleopatra was a famous queen of Egypt. She lived more than 2,000 years ago. Many people today know her name. They say she was beautiful. They say she was smart. They say she was strong. But Cleopatra was also a real person with a real life. Cleopatra was born in a big royal family. A royal family means a family of kings and queens. Her family was called the Ptolemy family. They came from Greece, but they ruled Egypt for many years. So Cleopatra lived in two worlds, Greek and Egyptian. She spoke many languages. People say she could speak 9 languages. A language is a way to talk, like English or Arabic. When Cleopatra was a child, she lived in a large palace. A palace is a big house for a king or queen. The palace was near the sea, in a city called Alexandria. Alexandria was a rich city. Many ships came there to buy and sell goods. Goods are things like food, spices, gold, and cloth. Cleopatra heard many stories from different people who came to the city. She liked to listen. She liked to learn. Cleopatra studied every day. She learned history, math, reading, and writing. She also learned how to talk to important people. She learned how to make good decisions. A decision is a choice. A queen must make many choices. Some are easy. Some are hard. Her father was King Ptolemy XII. He wanted his children to be ready for the future. He told Cleopatra, "A ruler must be wise." Wise means smart and careful. Cleopatra listened to him. She wanted to be a good ruler one day. But life in the royal family was not always easy. Cleopatra had brothers and sisters. Some of them wanted power too. Power means control, being the leader. In many royal families, people fight for power. It was the same in Cleopatra's family. There were arguments. There were secrets. Sometimes Cleopatra heard angry voices in the palace. She learned early that life for a future queen could be dangerous. Still, Cleopatra did not give up. She watched. She listened. She learned. She tried to understand people and their plans. She wanted to know how the world worked. She wanted to be ready for anything. When Cleopatra was a young girl, she also learned about Egypt itself. Egypt had a long river called the Nile. The Nile gave water to the land. When the Nile flooded, the fields became rich. People could grow food. Without the Nile, Egypt could not live. Cleopatra understood this. She knew that a good queen must care for her land and her people. Every year, there were great festivals for the Egyptian gods. A god is a powerful being that people believe in. Cleopatra learned about these gods and their stories. She respected Egyptian traditions. This made many people in Egypt like her. As Cleopatra grew older, She became more confident. Confident means sure of herself. She walked with a strong step. She spoke with a clear voice. People in the palace watched her and said, "She will be an important ruler one day." They were right. Soon Cleopatra's life would change. Soon she would become queen. But her road to the throne would not be simple. The throne is the seat of a king or queen. Many people wanted it. Cleopatra would have to be brave. She would have to be clever. Her story was only beginning. When Cleopatra became about 18 years old, her life changed very quickly. Her father, King Ptolemy XII, became sick. He knew he would not live much longer. Before he died, he wrote a will. A will is a paper that says what must happen after someone dies. In his will, he wrote that Cleopatra and her younger brother must rule Egypt together. His younger son was also named Ptolemy. He was only about 10 years old. In the Ptolemy family, brothers and sisters often ruled together. Sometimes they even married each other, because they wanted to keep all the power in the same family. Cleopatra understood this rule. She knew she must share the throne with her brother, even if he was a child. When their father died, Cleopatra became queen. She tried to rule well. She met with important people. She talked to priests, soldiers, and traders. Traders are people who buy and sell goods. Cleopatra wanted Egypt to be strong, safe, and rich. She worked many hours each day. But not everyone liked her. Some men near her brother wanted power for themselves. They did not want Cleopatra to lead Egypt. They whispered in her brother's ear. They said, "Your sister wants all the power. She wants to control everything." The young boy listened to them. He was too young to understand the world. The men around him made him believe Cleopatra was his enemy. Soon, the city became full of problems. Different groups supported different leaders. Some people supported Cleopatra. Some supported her brother. There were arguments in the streets. There were fights near the palace. Cleopatra saw that danger was growing every day. The men around her brother made a plan. They wanted to remove Cleopatra from the throne. They wanted the boy king to rule alone, but in truth, they wanted to control him. One night, the soldiers loyal to these men moved into the palace. They wanted to catch Cleopatra and send her away. But Cleopatra was careful and smart. She learned about the plan very quickly. She escaped from the palace with a few loyal friends. Loyal means true and faithful. These friends helped her leave Alexandria safely. Cleopatra left the city and went to the eastern desert. The desert is a hot, dry place with sand and little water. Life in the desert was hard. Cleopatra did not have a palace, servants, or fine food. But she did not lose hope. Hope means a belief that good things can happen. Cleopatra still believed she could return to her throne. She wanted to show Egypt that she was a strong ruler. From the desert, Cleopatra watched the city of Alexandria from far away. She thought about her next steps. She needed support. Support means help. She needed someone powerful who could help her come back. At that time, Rome was the most powerful country in the world. Roman leaders could decide the future of many lands, including Egypt. One of the greatest Roman leaders was Julius Caesar. He was a famous general and politician. Cleopatra heard that Caesar was now in Alexandria. He came to the city after a big war. He wanted Egypt to be peaceful again, because Egypt was important for Rome. Cleopatra understood that Caesar could help her return to power. But there was a problem. Cleopatra could not enter Alexandria openly. Her enemies were watching the roads and the gates. If they saw her, they would stop her. So Cleopatra needed a smart plan. She needed to come into the city quietly, without anyone knowing. Cleopatra thought for a long time. Then she made a brave plan. She decided to meet Caesar in secret. She knew that if she could speak to him face to face, she could explain her situation. She believed she could show him that she was the true ruler of Egypt. This was a big risk. Risk means something dangerous. If her plan failed, she could be caught. But Cleopatra was not afraid to act. She was ready to try. For her, Egypt was worth fighting for. Her journey back to Alexandria was about to begin, and with it, a new, important chapter of her life. Cleopatra was still hiding outside Alexandria. She lived simply and waited for the right moment to act. She knew she could not take back the throne alone. Her enemies were strong. Her brother's advisors had soldiers, money, and support inside the city. Cleopatra needed someone even stronger than them. She needed a man who could change everything. This man was Julius Caesar. He was one of the most powerful leaders in Rome. He was a famous general. He won many battles. People in Rome respected him and feared him. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria, he wanted to make peace in Egypt. He wanted to stop the fighting between Cleopatra and her brother. Egypt was important to Rome because it had much food and money. Caesar wanted order. Cleopatra understood this very well. She knew Caesar did not want chaos in Egypt. She also knew he could decide who should be the true ruler. If she could meet him face to face, she could explain her story. She believed Caesar would see that she was the rightful queen. But how could she meet him? She could not walk into the city. Her enemies watched the gates. They would stop her. They might even arrest her. Cleopatra needed a clever plan. A plan that was quiet, secret, and brave. One night, Cleopatra and her loyal friend Apollodorus made a decision. Apollodorus was strong and trusted. Cleopatra told him, "Take me into the city. Take me to Caesar. But no one must see me." They thought for a long time. Then Cleopatra had an idea. A simple idea, but very brave. They took a large rug. A rug is a thick piece of cloth for the floor. In those times, rugs were also used for carrying things. Cleopatra lay down on the rug. Apollodorus rolled the rug around her. Now she was completely hidden. No one could see her. She looked like a gift, not a queen. Late at night, Apollodorus carried the rug through the city gate. He walked calmly. The guards looked at him. They saw a servant carrying a rug. This did not look dangerous. They did not stop him. No one knew that the true queen of Egypt was inside. Apollodorus carried the rug into the palace where Caesar stayed. He told Caesar's guards that the rug was a present for the Roman leader. They allowed him to enter. Finally, Apollodorus placed the rug on the floor in front of Caesar. Caesar looked at the rug. He did not know what was inside. Then Apollodorus opened it. Slowly, the cloth unrolled. Cleopatra appeared. She stood up quickly and looked at Caesar with calm, proud eyes. Caesar was surprised. He had never seen such a bold woman. Bold means brave and not afraid. Cleopatra said with a clear voice, "I am Cleopatra, the true queen of Egypt. I ask for your help." Caesar listened to her story. She told him about her father's will, about the men who controlled her brother, about how she was pushed away from the throne. She spoke simply but strongly. Caesar liked her courage. He liked her intelligence. He saw that she was not afraid to fight for her place. Caesar decided to support her. He wanted Egypt to have a strong ruler who could work with Rome. He believed Cleopatra could be that ruler. He told her, "You will have your chance. I will help you return to power." Cleopatra felt hope again. Hope is a warm feeling that things will get better. She knew her life was about to change. With Caesar on her side, she was no longer alone. She was ready to fight for her throne. She was ready to return to Alexandria not as a stranger, but as a queen. Her long path back to power had finally begun. After Cleopatra met Julius Caesar, her life began to change again. Caesar was a strong leader, and many soldiers listened to him. When he decided to support Cleopatra, it became possible for her to return to the throne. But the city of Alexandria was still full of danger. Cleopatra's brothers' advisors did not want to lose their power. They prepared their own soldiers. They did not plan to give up the throne easily. Caesar called both Cleopatra and her brother to a meeting. He wanted them to make peace and rule together, as their father wished. Cleopatra came to the meeting calmly. Her brother came angry and afraid. The advisors did not trust Caesar. They shouted and complained. They said Cleopatra wanted everything for herself. Caesar listened, but he did not change his mind. He said, "The will of your father is clear. Cleopatra must be queen." This made the advisors furious. They left the palace and gathered their soldiers. Soon, fighting began in the city. Streets became unsafe. People closed their doors. Smoke rose from some buildings. Egypt was in the middle of a small war. This war was between Cleopatra's supporters and her brother's supporters. Caesar sent his soldiers to help Cleopatra. He wanted order in the city again. Cleopatra stayed close to Caesar during the fighting. She felt safer near him. Caesar was confident, strong, and calm. His soldiers were well trained. Slowly, they pushed the enemy back. The leaders of young Ptolemy ran away to the harbor. They tried to escape by ship. But during the escape, something terrible happened. Their ship sank. Cleopatra's brother drowned in the water. The fight for the throne was suddenly over. With her brother gone, Cleopatra became the clear ruler of Egypt. But Egyptian tradition said she must rule with a man from her family. So she was crowned with another younger brother, Ptolemy 14. But everyone knew Cleopatra was the real queen. She made decisions. She controlled the palace. She planned for the future. Caesar stayed in Egypt for a while. During this time, Cleopatra and Caesar spent many days together. They talked about politics, trade, and the future of Egypt. Cleopatra showed him the Nile, the temples, and the people. She wanted him to understand her land. Caesar liked her intelligence. He respected her ideas. Their connection grew stronger. Later, Cleopatra had a baby boy. She named him Caesarion. This name means Little Caesar. Many people believed he was the son of Julius Caesar. Cleopatra was proud. She hoped her son would one day rule Egypt and bring peace to the land. For a short time, Egypt was quiet and peaceful. Cleopatra rebuilt parts of Alexandria. She opened schools and supported trade. She wanted Egypt to be rich and safe again. People began to respect her more. They saw she was a serious ruler, not just a young woman from a royal family. She worked hard every day. She checked the food supply, the taxes, the army, and the temples. A queen must take care of everything. But peace never stays forever. After some months, Caesar returned to Rome. He needed to continue his work there. Cleopatra stayed in Egypt with her baby and her new power. She hoped her connection with Caesar would protect her land for many years. However, big events were already waiting in Rome. And these events would soon change Cleopatra's life again, much more than she expected. For some time, Cleopatra lived quietly in Egypt. She ruled the land, cared for the people, and watched her son, Caesarion, grow. Egypt was peaceful again. The markets were full. The ships brought food, cloth, and gold. The Nile gave good water to the fields. Cleopatra felt proud. She believed the future would be bright. But Rome was far away, and Cleopatra knew Rome was very important to her life. Julius Caesar was now the most powerful man in Rome. Many people in Rome liked him, but some people feared him. They thought he was too strong. They thought he wanted to be a king. Rome did not like kings. Rome liked leaders who shared power. One day, news came to Egypt. A messenger from Rome arrived in Alexandria. He came to the palace and asked to see Cleopatra. She sat on her throne and listened to him. His face looked serious. His clothes were dusty from long travel. The messenger said, "Great Queen, I bring sad news. Julius Caesar is dead. He was killed in Rome by his own men. They stabbed him many times in the Senate." Cleopatra felt the world become quiet. She did not speak for a long moment. Caesar had been her ally. He helped her return to power. He protected Egypt. He was also the father of her son. Hearing of his death was like feeling a cold wind inside her heart. She asked the messenger, "Who killed him?" The messenger said, "A group of senators. They said they acted for the good of Rome. But Rome is now full of fear and anger." Cleopatra understood the danger immediately. Without Caesar, Egypt had no strong friend in Rome. Many Roman leaders did not trust her. Some did not like that she had a son with Caesar. Some feared she wanted to use Egypt to become more powerful. Soon after the news, Cleopatra became worried about the future. Rome was not stable. There were new leaders, new armies, and new enemies. Caesar's close friend Mark Antony and Caesar's adopted son Octavian now controlled much of Rome. But they did not yet trust each other. Rome was full of conflict. Cleopatra tried to stay calm. She looked at her baby. Caesarion smiled at her with bright eyes. She held him close. She thought, I must protect him. He is my son. He is the future of Egypt. Cleopatra did not know what Rome would decide about the child of Caesar. Life in the palace changed. Cleopatra had many meetings. She spoke with advisors, soldiers, and priests. She asked them, how can we keep Egypt safe? They told her, we must be careful. We must wait. We must watch Rome closely. Cleopatra agreed. She did not want war. She did not want Rome to see her as an enemy. She needed time to understand the new situation. She knew Rome was strong. Egypt must be wise. Months passed. In Rome, the leaders began to fight each other. Mark Antony and Octavian tried to work together, but their partnership was weak. Cleopatra listened to every piece of news. She wanted to know who would lead Rome next. She wanted to know whom she could trust. During this time, Cleopatra focused on Egypt. She improved the roads and the ports. She made sure the temples had enough support. She watched the Nile and the harvests. She wanted people to feel safe, even when the world outside was full of danger. But Cleopatra also knew something else. She could not hide from Rome forever. At some point, she would need to choose a new ally. She would need someone strong, someone who respected Egypt, someone who could protect her son. And soon, one of Rome's most important men would call for her. His name was Mark Antony, and meeting him would once again change the course of her life. After the death of Julius Caesar, Cleopatra watched the world very carefully. She knew Rome was changing again. Two strong men were now the main leaders, Mark Antony and Octavian. They won many battles together and controlled a large part of the Roman world. But soon they began to act differently. Each wanted more power. Each wanted to be the most important man in Rome. Mark Antony was a famous general. He was brave in battle, strong in body, and full of energy. Many soldiers loved him. He liked music, wine, and celebrations. He also liked meeting interesting people. One day, he decided he wanted to speak with Cleopatra. Some said he needed her help because Egypt had a lot of money. Others said he was simply curious about the famous queen. Mark Antony sent a message to Cleopatra. He asked her to come to the city of Tarsus and meet him. Cleopatra understood this was very important. Rome was still dangerous. Egypt needed a strong friend. She also knew Antony respected strength and confidence. So she decided to meet him in a way he would never forget. Cleopatra prepared a great boat for the trip. The boat was large and beautiful. The sails were purple, a color of kings and queens. They smelled of sweet perfume. Musicians played soft music. Servants wore fine clothes. Cleopatra wanted Antony to see her as a powerful ruler, not just a woman from a far land. When she arrived in Tarsus, people ran to see the boat. They were amazed. They said, "This queen comes like a goddess." A goddess is a female god. Cleopatra sat on a golden chair, wearing bright jewels and a tall crown. Her eyes were calm and strong. Mark Antony invited Cleopatra to dinner. She accepted. At the dinner, Cleopatra spoke with a clear voice. She answered every question simply and wisely. She did not try to impress Antony with beauty alone. She impressed him with her mind. Antony was surprised. He laughed loudly and said, "Queen Cleopatra, you are not like other rulers. You are bold and clever." Cleopatra smiled politely. She said, "Egypt needs peace. Rome needs strong friends. We can help each other." Antony agreed. He understood she was not afraid of him. He liked that. Many people feared him, but Cleopatra did not. During their meetings, they talked about trade, armies, and the future. Cleopatra told him about Egypt's history and the Nile. Antony told her about Rome and its battles. Soon, they began to respect each other more and more. Their partnership grew into a friendship, and later, their friendship grew into love. Antony followed Cleopatra back to Alexandria. He spent many months in Egypt. He enjoyed the city. He enjoyed the food, the music, and the warm nights. People in Alexandria welcomed him. They liked festivals and games. Antony liked them too. Cleopatra and Antony spent time together every day. They laughed, talked, and planned. Cleopatra showed him the temples and the library. Antony showed her how Roman soldiers trained. They felt strong together. They believed they could build a better future. Later, Cleopatra had twins, a boy and a girl. Antony was proud. Cleopatra felt her family grow. She believed her children would connect Egypt and Rome. She hoped for peace and balance. But far away, in Rome, Octavian watched Antony with sharp eyes. He did not like Antony's new life in Egypt. He did not like Cleopatra. He did not like that Antony now had children with her. Octavian wanted to be the only ruler of Rome. And slowly, very slowly, he began to turn the Roman people against Antony. Cleopatra did not yet know how dangerous Octavian would become. She did not know that meeting Antony would not only bring love, but also lead to the greatest war of her life. Cleopatra and Mark Antony lived happily for some time. They stayed in Alexandria and enjoyed many days together. Cleopatra worked as a queen. Antony worked as a Roman general. But they also shared quiet dinners, long talks, and many celebrations. They felt safe in each other's company. Cleopatra felt stronger with Antony. Antony felt calmer with Cleopatra. In Alexandria, people liked Antony. They said he was friendly and full of life. He joined games, watched music shows, and even walked through the busy markets. He learned some Egyptian words and tried Egyptian food. Many people smiled when they saw him. Cleopatra was pleased. She wanted Egypt and Rome to understand each other better. Cleopatra and Antony also made plans for the future. They wanted their children to have strong lives. They hoped their families would unite Egypt and Rome. They talked about making the eastern lands of the Roman world peaceful again. Cleopatra believed Antony was a brave leader who could protect her land. But far away, in Rome, Octavian watched everything. Octavian was Caesar's adopted son. He was young, quiet, and very smart. He did not smile much. He did not forget anything. He wanted to be the most powerful man in the world. And he saw Antony as a danger to his dream. Octavian began to tell the Roman people stories about Antony. He said Antony did not care about Rome anymore. He said Antony lived in Egypt like a king, not like a Roman soldier. He said Cleopatra controlled Antony. He said Antony forgot his Roman wife. These stories made many Romans angry. They began to think Antony was weak. Cleopatra understood this was a problem. She talked with Antony many evenings. She said, "We must be careful. Octavian does not like us. He can make Rome turn against you." Antony knew she was right, but he did not want to leave Egypt. He loved Cleopatra. He loved their children. He loved the life they built together. Still, Antony knew he must act. He traveled between Rome and Egypt. Sometimes he made peace with Octavian. Sometimes they argued. Rome was growing divided. Many soldiers and leaders chose sides. Some supported Octavian. Some supported Antony. One year, Antony returned to Alexandria with more soldiers and ships. He brought gifts for Cleopatra and played with their children, but his eyes looked tired. The war inside Rome was becoming bigger. Cleopatra saw this and felt worried. She said, "Antony, Rome will not let us live in peace. We must prepare for danger." Antony agreed. He told Cleopatra that Octavian was planning to take control of all lands. He said Octavian wanted Egypt too. Cleopatra felt angry. She wanted to protect her home. She said, "Egypt is strong. We will defend our land. We will not give up." Antony and Cleopatra began to prepare for war. They made a large fleet of ships. A fleet is a group of many boats and ships. They trained soldiers. They gathered food and supplies. Cleopatra helped with many decisions. She checked maps. She talked with generals. She wanted everything to be ready. Even during this hard time, Cleopatra and Antony tried to stay hopeful. They believed their love and their partnership made them stronger. They believed they could win. Their children played in the palace gardens. The city of Alexandria prepared for possible battles. People talked about war in the streets. Some were afraid. Some felt brave. But everyone understood that a big change was coming. Far across the sea, Octavian continued to gather his own army. He told his soldiers, "We fight for Rome. We fight against a foreign queen." His words were meant to make them angry. He wanted them to believe Antony was no longer a true Roman. Cleopatra knew the truth. She knew this war was not only about land or power. It was also about fear and pride. Two great leaders were moving closer and closer to a final conflict. And Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, stood bravely at the center of it all. The time for peace was over. Cleopatra and Mark Antony understood that Octavian was ready for war. Octavian wanted to rule all of Rome alone. He did not want to share power. He wanted to control Egypt too, because Egypt was rich and important. Cleopatra knew she must protect her land. Antony knew he must protect his honor. So they prepared for the great battle. Cleopatra and Antony gathered a huge fleet. A fleet is a large group of ships. Their ships were strong and beautiful. Many were full of soldiers. Many carried food, water, and weapons. Cleopatra helped Antony plan the war. She looked at maps of the sea. She studied the winds. She checked the ships one by one. She wanted everything to be perfect. Antony was happy to have her by his side. He trusted her judgment. Their plan was to meet Octavian's army near a place called Actium. Actium was far from Egypt, across the sea, in the western lands. But Cleopatra and Antony believed they must face Octavian directly. If they won, they could keep Egypt safe. If they lost, everything would change forever. The day of the great battle came. The sun rose bright and hot. Cleopatra's ships sailed side by side with Antony's ships. Their flags flew in the wind. Soldiers stood ready with shields and spears. The sea moved gently, but everyone felt nervous. A big battle was coming. From far away, Octavian's fleet appeared. His ships moved fast. His soldiers were trained and ready. Octavian wanted to end the war quickly. He wanted to destroy Antony's fleet and take Cleopatra prisoner. Many Romans believed Cleopatra was the reason for the conflict. They wanted to see her defeated. When the battle began, the sea filled with noise. Ships crashed into each other. Arrows flew through the air. Soldiers shouted. The water became dark with smoke. Antony's ships fought bravely. Cleopatra's ships also fought strongly. But Octavian's fleet was larger and more organized. The wind changed suddenly. It pushed Cleopatra's ships away from the center of the battle. Some soldiers became confused. Some thought the queen wanted to escape. Others did not know where to go. Antony saw Cleopatra's ships moving back. He worried something was wrong. He feared she was in danger. So he turned his own ship to follow her. This was a big mistake. Antony did not give a clear order to his fleet. Without his command, many ships did not know what to do. Some tried to keep fighting. Some turned away. The battle became broken. Octavian's soldiers quickly used this moment. They attacked harder. They took control of the sea. Cleopatra and Antony were now far from the battle. Their ships sailed fast to protect what they still had, their lives and their treasure. They reached safety, but their fleet was lost. Many ships were destroyed. Many soldiers were taken by Octavian. It was a terrible defeat. When Cleopatra and Antony returned to Egypt, the mood in Alexandria changed. People felt afraid. They understood that Octavian was winning. The markets became quiet. The streets lost their joy. Soldiers trained all day. Cleopatra walked through the palace with a heavy heart. She knew they had made mistakes. She knew the next months would be difficult. Antony was also very sad. He felt he had failed his men. He felt he had failed Cleopatra. He stopped smiling. He spent long hours alone. Cleopatra tried to comfort him. She said, "We still have hope. Egypt is strong. We will make a new plan. But Antony looked tired. He did not feel strong anymore. Meanwhile, Octavian prepared to come to Egypt. He sent messages across the Roman world. He told everyone he would end the war soon. He said he would take Alexandria. He said he would capture Cleopatra. His soldiers celebrated. They believed their victory was already close. Cleopatra understood that the biggest storm of her life was coming. She stood on her balcony and looked at the dark sea. She felt the cold wind. She knew she must be brave. She must protect her people. She must make hard choices. The final chapter of her story was getting closer, and Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, was ready to face it. After the lost battle, Cleopatra and Mark Antony returned to Alexandria. The city was worried. People knew Octavian was coming with a large army. They heard stories that he was already close. His soldiers were strong and well-trained. They followed him without fear. Many people in Alexandria began to feel hopeless. They wondered what would happen to their queen and to their city. Cleopatra tried to stay calm. She walked through the palace every morning. She spoke with her advisors. She checked the food stores, the soldiers, and the ships. She wanted to show everyone that she was still a strong leader. But inside her heart, she felt heavy. She knew Octavian would not stop until he controlled Egypt. Mark Antony was in a darker state. He felt ashamed after the defeat at Actium. He believed he had disappointed his soldiers and Cleopatra. Many days he sat alone in his room. He looked out the window at the sea and said nothing. Cleopatra visited him often. She took his hand and said, "We can still try. We can still save Egypt. Do not lose your spirit." But Antony struggled to feel hope again. Octavian's army came closer and closer. Soon they reached the gates of Alexandria. Cleopatra and Antony prepared for one last defense. But Antony's soldiers were tired and fewer than before. Octavian's soldiers were many, and they moved quickly. The final fight did not last long. Antony's forces could not stop Octavian's army. The city began to fall. When Antony heard that his soldiers were losing, he became desperate. Someone told him a lie. They said Cleopatra was dead. Antony believed the lie. He felt his heart break. He loved Cleopatra. He thought life had no meaning without her. In great sorrow, Antony took his sword. A sword is a long, sharp weapon. He tried to take his own life, but the wound was not quick. He did not die immediately. Servants ran to Cleopatra and told her what had happened. She cried, "No, he must not die." Cleopatra ordered her servants to bring Antony to her hidden room in the palace. They carried him carefully. Cleopatra held him in her arms. Antony looked at her and said softly, "I thought you were gone. I could not live without you." Cleopatra answered, "I am here. I am alive. Stay with me." Antony smiled sadly. He touched her hand and said his final words. Soon after, he died in Cleopatra's arms. Cleopatra felt great pain. She had lost her partner, her friend, and the father of 2 of her children. She cried quietly, but she also knew she could not stop. She still had to face Octavian. Octavian soon took control of the palace. He wanted Cleopatra alive. He planned to take her to Rome. He wanted to show her to the Roman people as a prisoner. For Cleopatra, this was the worst fate. She was a queen. She was proud. She did not want to walk in chains. In Rome, a chain is a metal rope used to hold prisoners. Octavian met Cleopatra and tried to speak calmly. He told her, "Do not be afraid. You will come to Rome. I will show the people that I am the true ruler." Cleopatra listened quietly, but inside she felt strong anger. She did not want to be a prize in someone else's victory. Cleopatra understood she must make a final decision. She believed that if she died, her children might be safer. She believed she must leave the world as a queen, not as a prisoner. She returned to her private rooms and spoke to her loyal servants. She said, "Octavian will not take me to Rome. I will choose my own end." Her servants understood her wish. They loved her and agreed to help. Cleopatra knew this was the last day of her life. She wanted to leave the world with dignity. Dignity means calm, proud behavior, even in a sad moment. She called for her children. She hugged them and told them to be brave. She said, "You must live with honor. Remember that I love you." Her children cried, but Cleopatra tried to stay strong. She wanted them to see her courage. Outside, Alexandria was quiet. The sun was hot. The air felt heavy. People waited for news. No one knew what would happen next. Cleopatra looked around her room one last time. She touched her crown. She closed her eyes for a short moment. She was ready. Cleopatra sat in her quiet room. She knew it was her last day. Outside, the palace was under Octavian's control. Roman guards stood near every door. They wanted to make sure Cleopatra did not escape. But Cleopatra did not plan to run. She planned something different. She planned her own end. Cleopatra wore her royal dress. She put on her gold crown. She wanted to look like a queen until the final moment. She said to her loyal servants, "I want to leave this world as a ruler, not as a prisoner." Her servants cried, but they understood. They respected her wish. They brought her a small basket of figs. Inside the basket, hidden among the fruit, was a small snake. This snake was called an asp. People believed its bite brought a quick and quiet death. Cleopatra looked at the basket calmly. She touched one fig with her fingers. Then she lifted the snake. She was not afraid. She said, "This is my choice. No one will take my freedom." Freedom means the right to make your own decisions. Before she ended her life, Cleopatra asked to be alone for a short time. She sat on a soft chair. She looked at the walls of her room. She remembered her childhood in the palace, her studies, her dreams. She remembered Caesar and the son they had together. She remembered Antony, his laugh and his sadness. She remembered the Nile, the temples, the festivals, and the sound of people cheering for her during celebrations. She remembered the battles she fought, the choices she made, and the love she felt for Egypt. At last, Cleopatra held the snake close to her arm. The snake bit her. The pain was small. Her eyes closed slowly. Her breath became soft. Cleopatra died as she wished, proud, calm, and still a queen. When Octavian heard the news, he was surprised. He planned to take Cleopatra to Rome, but now that plan was gone. Still, he won the war. He took Egypt under Roman control. He changed many things. Egypt was no longer an independent land. It became a province of Rome. But Cleopatra's story did not end with her death. People continued to speak about her. Some said she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Some said she was very clever. Some said she was dangerous. Many people argued about her life, but most agreed she was unforgettable. Cleopatra's children lived different lives. Her twins, the children of Antony, were taken to Rome. They were raised by Octavian's sister. They grew up safely, but they never returned to Egypt as rulers. Cleopatra's oldest son, Caesarion, was not so lucky. Octavian feared that Caesarion might try to become a leader. He believed Caesarion could be a threat. Sadly, Caesarion was killed soon after Cleopatra's death. Cleopatra had tried to protect him, but Rome was too powerful. Even with these sad endings, Cleopatra's memory became strong across the world. Writers told her story. Artists painted her face. Actors played her in theaters. People talked about her beauty, her mind, her courage, and her choices. She became a legend. A legend is a story that lives for many years. Today, people still study Cleopatra. They want to know who she really was. Was she a great ruler? Was she a brave woman? Was she a clever leader? The answer is yes. Cleopatra was all of these. She was a queen who fought for her land and her family. She was a woman who learned many languages and understood many cultures. She made mistakes, but she also made strong decisions. Cleopatra's life shows that history is not only about wars and dates. It is about people, their hopes, fears, and dreams. Cleopatra wanted to protect Egypt. She wanted her family to be safe. She wanted her name to be remembered. And today, thousands of years later, people still speak her name. Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, left a bright mark on the world. Her story continues, because stories about brave people never truly end.